If I were to hold a mirror before you right now, not a mirror of glass, but a mirror of truth, would you recognize the woman looking back? Or have you spent so long conforming to what others needed you to be that you have forgotten your own face? I see women building their lives around the fear of abandonment. I see daughters of the Most High God tiptoeing through relationships, terrified of being too much or not enough. And I must ask you something that may sting before it heals. When did you decide that love required your shrinking? When did you agree to that lie? Because I never signed that contract, and neither did my father. You are here because something brought you to this moment. Perhaps it was curiosity, perhaps it was pain, perhaps it was that quiet voice within you that whispers in the still hours of the night, telling you that there must be more than this endless cycle of giving and hoping and wondering if you will ever be truly seen. I want you to know that I see you, not the version of you that you perform for the world, not the version that smiles when she wants to weep, not the version that says she is fine when everything within her is falling apart. I see the real you, the one you hide, the one you protect, the one you are sometimes afraid to be. And I have something to tell you today that will change the way you walk through every room, every relationship, every moment of your life from this point forward. But I need you to stay with me. I need you to listen, not just with your ears, but with your spirit. Because what I am about to share is not advice. It is truth. And truth has a way of dismantling everything that was built on lies. You have come to this teaching because something within you knows that the way you have been operating is exhausting. You have given your energy to people who did not protect it. You have bent yourself into shapes that were never natural to your design. You have twisted and contorted and adjusted until you no longer recognize the woman in the mirror. And despite your prayers, despite your faithfulness, despite your hoping, you still feel unseen, undervalued, uncertain of your place in this world and in the hearts of those you love. This is not about romantic relationships alone, though I know many of you are aching in that area. This is about the pattern that runs through every area of your life: friendship, family, work, even your relationship with me. The pattern of overgiving to prove you deserve to receive. The pattern of tolerating crumbs while pretending you are not starving. The pattern of making yourself available to those who have not earned access to your presence. The world has taught you that love requires pursuit, that devotion means losing yourself, that good women sacrifice until they are hollow. But I say to you plainly, the woman who pours from an empty cup is not generous. She is bleeding, and bleeding is not a love language. It is a wound, and wounds need healing, not celebration. By the time you finish hearing what I have to share, you will understand something that most people never grasp. You will understand the sacred difference between availability and accessibility. You will learn why your overflow, not your effort, is what draws lasting love. And you will discover that becoming a luxury is not about arrogance or pride or thinking yourself better than others. It is about alignment with the value I have already assigned to you, a value that was established before you took your first breath, a value that cannot be diminished by rejection or increased by approval, a value that simply is, because I said so. Before I give you principles, I must first show you pictures. Truth becomes flesh through story. The mind can argue with concepts, but the heart cannot argue with a story that resonates with its own experience. So walk with me now into the lives of those who learned what I am about to teach you. See yourself in their struggle. Find yourself in their awakening. There was a woman who spent years carrying water. Now, I do not mean only the physical act, though she did that too. I mean she carried the weight of every relationship she was in. She was always the one who called first, always the one who apologized first, even when she had done nothing wrong. Always the one who adjusted herself to fit into spaces that were never built for her shape. She loved a man who received her devotion like it was his right, never his privilege. He never wondered if she would stay because she had made it so abundantly clear that she would never leave. She thought her consistency proved her love. She thought her endless availability demonstrated her commitment. but all it demonstrated was that she did not believe she deserved to be pursued in return. She served friends who remembered her only when they needed something carried. When their lives were heavy, they would call, and she would come running. But when her life was heavy, when she needed someone to help her carry her own water, she would look around and find herself alone. They had grown so accustomed to her carrying that they never thought to offer to carry anything for her. One day, this woman set her jar down. She did not throw it. She did not shatter it in anger or bitterness. She simply, quietly, set it down. She was exhausted. Exhausted from carrying what others refused to lift. Exhausted from being strong for everyone while no one was strong for her. Exhausted from the endless performance of being needed. And in that moment of setting down her jar, she realized something that changed everything. She had become so identified with fetching, so intertwined with the act of serving and carrying and giving, that she had forgotten she was also meant to be filled. She had forgotten that she was not just a carrier of water. She was meant to be a well herself, a source, a spring of living water that bubbles up from within. Had been so busy fetching from external sources that she had neglected the spring that I had placed inside her. When she stopped fetching, something shifted. It was subtle at first. The people who had relied on her labor, who had valued her only for what she could carry, they grew confused, then frustrated, then angry. Then they left, and she felt that leaving like a death. She grieved it. She wondered if she had made a mistake. She wondered if she was being selfish. She wondered if anyone would ever love her, if she was not useful. But then something else happened. The people who had been waiting in the background, the ones who saw her and not just her service, they drew closer. They had always been there, but she had been too busy running to notice them. These were the ones who did not want her for what she could carry. They wanted her for who she was, and they were willing to carry things too. This raises a question that most are afraid to ask. What if the people who leave when you stop performing were never really there for you at all? What if their presence was conditioned on your service, and their absence reveals the truth of their intentions? I know this is painful to consider, but pain in service of truth leads to freedom. Pain in service of lies leads only to more pain. Let me show you another picture. There was a woman who grew up being called by the names others gave her. When she was young, someone called her too sensitive, and she believed it. She began to apologize for her tears. She began to hide her emotions. She learned to feel shame for the very tenderness that I had woven into her design. Another voice called her difficult, and she believed that too. She began to silence her opinions. She stopped asking questions. She learned that her thoughts were inconvenient to those who did not want to be challenged. Still another called her too much, and this one perhaps wounded deepest of all. She began to shrink, to take up less space, to dim the light that I had placed within her so that others would not feel threatened by its brightness. She became an expert at making herself small enough to fit into rooms that were never built for someone her size. She wore these names like garments. She adjusted her behavior constantly, trying to prove the labels wrong, or worse, trying to accept them as true and live within their limitations. She became a master of shape-shifting, becoming whatever each person needed her to be. And in all that becoming, she lost track of who she actually was. She came to me in prayer one night. She was weeping, not the gentle tears of a passing sadness, but the deep, heaving sobs of someone who has reached the end of themselves. She asked me, through her tears, why she could never be what people wanted, why she was always too something or not enough something else, why she could never seem to get it right. And I asked her a question that she had never considered. I said, "My daughter, why are you answering to names I never gave you?" She grew quiet. She had never thought about it that way. She had spent her entire life responding to labels that others had placed upon her, never stopping to ask whether those labels were true, never stopping to ask what I had called her. Your true name is not what others have labeled you. Your true name is what I speak over you in the secret place. beloved, chosen, set apart, fearfully and wonderfully made, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a daughter of the King. But here is the danger, and I need you to hear this clearly. When you answer to false names long enough, you forget the sound of your real one. The labels become so familiar that they feel like truth, and when someone finally calls you by your true name, it sounds foreign, unfamiliar, even suspicious. You do not recognize it as yours because you have been answering to lies for so long. A woman who knows her true name does not negotiate her identity. She does not shrink to fit someone else's limited vocabulary for who she should be. She becomes what the world calls a luxury, not because she thinks she is better than others, but because she is no longer available to everyone. She is only available to those who call her by what she truly is. She has learned to recognize the difference between those who see her and those who see only what they can get from her. Now, let me give you a third picture, and this one is more of a parable than a story. Imagine a garden, a beautiful, flourishing garden, full of color and fragrance and life. Flowers bloom in every direction. Fruit hangs heavy on the branches. Butterflies dance among the blossoms. It is a garden that is fully, unapologetically alive. Now imagine that travelers pass by this garden, and some of them look at it with criticism rather than wonder. One says, "This garden is too vibrant. It overwhelms the senses." Another says, "This garden takes up too much space. It should be more contained, more controlled." Another says, "Who does this garden think it is, blooming so boldly when the gardens around it are more modest?" And imagine that this garden, hearing these criticisms, begins to do something tragic. It begins to pull its own roots. It begins to close its own petals. It begins to produce less fruit, bear less beauty, take up less space. It begins to apologize, in its own way, for the very flourishing it was created for. This is what many of you have done. You have apologized for your gifts. You have muted your beauty. You have restrained your voice because someone once told you it was too loud. You have dimmed your light because someone once complained that it was too bright. You have hidden your abundance because someone once made you feel guilty for having more than they did. But listen to me carefully. The garden does not bloom for the approval of those who walk by. The garden blooms because blooming is its nature. It cannot help but bloom. Blooming is what it was made for. And when it blooms fully, unapologetically, holding nothing back, it does not chase butterflies. They come. They are drawn. This is the law of nature, and it is the law of the kingdom. A luxury is not something that diminishes itself to be accessible to everyone. A luxury is something that maintains its full expression, its full beauty, its full value, and allows only those who recognize its worth to draw near. You are that garden. Stop apologizing for your blooming. Stop shrinking because small-minded travelers do not understand what they are seeing. Stop pulling your own roots because someone once told you that your flourishing made them uncomfortable. Now that you have seen the truth in story form, let me speak it plainly. Let me give you the principles that will restructure how you see yourself and how others see you. These are not tricks or techniques. These are laws of the kingdom that operate whether you believe in them or not. Just as gravity operates whether you believe in it or not. The first principle is this. Many of you have operated under a dangerous belief your entire lives. You believe that more effort produces more love. You believe that if you just try harder, sacrifice more, prove yourself longer, eventually you will be valued. You think love is an equation where your input determines the output. So you keep putting in more, hoping that eventually the output will match your investment. But this is not how my kingdom operates. In my kingdom, love flows from overflow, not from striving. When I fed the 5,000, I did not strain and struggle and exhaust myself. I took what was given, I blessed it, and it multiplied. The miracle did not come from effort. It came from surrender. It came from trust in the Father's abundance. I did not create that bread and fish through sweat and labor. I received it from the Father and let it multiply through blessing. Here is what confuses the world. The woman who stops striving often receives more than the woman who exhausts herself. The woman who releases her grip often receives what the woman with clenched fists never obtains. Why is this? Because effort rooted in fear repels, while peace rooted in identity attracts. Think about it in practical terms. When you meet someone who is desperate, who is trying too hard, who is performing for your approval, how do you feel? You feel uncomfortable. You feel the weight of their neediness. You feel the pressure of their expectation. And something in you wants to withdraw, not because you are cruel, but because desperation creates an energy that is difficult to be around. But when you meet someone who is at peace, who is comfortable in their own skin, who is not trying to prove anything or earn anything, who simply is, how do you feel? You feel drawn to them. You want to be around them. Their peace is contagious. Their wholeness is attractive. Their freedom is magnetic. When you operate from overflow, from the contour, fullness of knowing who you are and whose you are, you do not grasp. You do not cling. You do not chase. You give freely because you know your supply is infinite. You love openly because you are not afraid of loss. And that freedom, that holy confidence, that settledness in your identity, that is what draws love to you without effort. Ask yourself this question honestly. When you give, are you giving to receive, or are you giving because you are already full? The first is transaction. The second is love. The first is manipulation dressed in generosity. The second is true abundance flowing from a heart that has nothing to prove. The world says that love is earned through effort, but I say to you, love that must be earned through performance is not love. It is wages. It is payment. It is a business arrangement dressed up in romantic language, and you were not designed to work for what was meant to be given freely. The second principle is the sacred distinction between availability and accessibility. Most people use these words interchangeably, but they are not the same, and understanding the difference will change everything about how you structure your relationships. Availability means you are present when it matters. It means you show up for the people and moments that are truly important. It means you are dependable, reliable, faithful. Accessibility means anyone can reach you at any time, for any reason, without cost. It means you have no gatekeepers, no boundaries, no standards for who gets access to your time, your energy, your heart. I was available to those who sought me with sincere hearts. When people came to me in genuine need, I was there. I healed the sick. I fed the hungry. I comforted the grieving. I taught those who wanted to learn. I was available, but I was not accessible to everyone at all times. I withdrew to pray. I went up on mountains alone. I slipped away from crowds when I needed to be with the Father. I chose my inner circle carefully. I had the 12, and within the 12 I had the 3. And within the 3 I had the one who leaned upon my chest. Not everyone had the same level of access to me, and that was not unkindness. That was wisdom. Being difficult to access does not mean you are cold or unloving. It means you understand that your presence has weight. It means you recognize that your energy is finite in its earthly expression and must be stewarded carefully. It means you protect the sacred space within you so that when you do give your presence, you give from wholeness, not from depletion. Many women believe that being constantly accessible proves their love. They answer every call immediately. They respond to every text within seconds. They rearrange their entire lives for people who would not rearrange a sentence for them. They make themselves infinitely available, and then they wonder why they feel drained. They wonder why they feel unseen. They wonder why people seem to value them less the more available they become. Here is the truth that stings before it heals. What is always available is rarely valued. This is not how things should be, but it is how things often are in a world still learning what love truly means. When something is always available, always accessible, always there no matter how it is treated, human nature begins to take it for granted. Not because humans are evil, but because humans are fallen and often do not recognize value until they experience absence. A luxury is not on every shelf in every store. A luxury is not discounted for quick sale. A luxury is not desperate to be purchased. A luxury maintains its standard, maintains its quality, maintains its value regardless of who is in the room or whether anyone is buying. This is not pride. This is wisdom. This is stewardship of what I have placed within you. But I hear your question already. Does this mean I should build walls and push everyone away? Does this mean I should become cold and distant and unavailable? No. And this is where balance enters the picture. The third principle is the power of holy selectivity. I chose 12. Think about that. Multitudes followed me. Thousands came to hear me speak. Hundreds wanted to be close to me. But out of all who followed, I drew 12 close. I gave them access that the crowds did not have. I taught them things I did not teach publicly. I showed them who I was in ways I did not show the masses. And within those 12, 3 were closer still. Peter, James, and John saw things the other 9 did not see. They were with me on the mountain of transfiguration. They were with me in the Garden of Gethsemane. They had a level of access that even the other disciples did not share. And even among those 3, one leaned upon my chest at supper. John, the beloved disciple, had an intimacy that was unique. This was not favoritism in the petty sense. This was wisdom. I understood something that you must understand. Depth requires limits. You cannot go deep with everyone. The heart that tries to be intimate with all will be intimate with none. If you spread yourself across every relationship equally, you will have no relationship deeply. You do not owe everyone equal access to your heart. You are not obligated to give your energy to every person who demands it. Holy selectivity is not rejection of others. It is stewardship of yourself. It is recognition that you are finite in your earthly capacity and must choose wisely where to invest the depths of who you are. Many of you fear being called selfish if you choose. You fear being labeled cold if you withdraw from draining relationships. You fear that people will think less of you if you do not give them what they want when they want it. But hear me clearly. It is not selfish to protect what is sacred. It is selfish to waste what God has entrusted to you on those who will not honor it. It is selfish to deplete yourself serving people who drain you rather than preserving yourself to pour into people who will receive what you offer. Here is the paradox that the world cannot understand. The woman who is selective is often perceived as more valuable than the woman who is available to all. Why? Because selectivity signals self-knowledge. It signals standards. It signals that her presence is not a right to be demanded but a gift to be earned. And humans, by nature, value what they must pursue more than what is freely given, without condition. The fourth principle is this. Detachment is not coldness. It is holiness. There is a form of detachment that the world mistakes for indifference, but it is actually the highest form of love. It is the ability to love without clinging, to care without controlling, to give without demanding return, to hold people with open hands rather than clenched fists. When I sent the disciples out to preach, I gave them specific instructions. I told them, if a house does not receive you, shake the dust from your feet and move on. Think about what I was teaching them. I was not teaching them to be bitter. I was not teaching them to curse those who rejected them. I was teaching them that their peace, their sense of worth, their identity was not dependent on how others received them. If people rejected their message, the disciples were not to grovel and beg and try harder to convince them. They were to release those people to their own journey and move on to those who would receive what they had to offer. This was not cold indifference. This was freedom. This was the recognition that you cannot control how others respond to you. You can only control how you respond to their response. Many of you cling to relationships that I am asking you to release. You hold on to people who have shown you repeatedly who they are because letting go feels like failure. It feels like admitting defeat. It feels like acknowledging that the investment you made is not going to pay off the way you hoped. But I say to you, sometimes letting go is the most faithful thing you can do. It releases the other person to their own journey, their own lessons, their own growth, and it frees you to walk in yours. Clinging to someone who does not want to be held is not love. It is control disguised as devotion. It is fear dressed up as faithfulness. A woman who is detached from outcome is a woman who cannot be manipulated. She cannot be controlled by the withdrawal of affection because her worth is not tied to another's behavior. She cannot be punished with silence because her peace does not depend on another's words. She loves, but she does not beg. She gives, but she does not grovel. She hopes, but she does not cling. And this makes her free in a way that few people ever experience. I want to be very clear about something. Detachment does not mean you do not feel. This is not emotional suppression. This is not pretending you do not care. This is not hardening your heart against pain. You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to grieve. You are allowed to be disappointed. Detachment does not mean the absence of emotion. It means your emotions do not rule you. You feel the disappointment, but you do not abandon yourself in response to it. You feel the rejection, but you do not conclude that you are rejectable. You feel the pain, but you do not allow it to redefine your identity. The fifth principle may be the most important of all. It is what I call the throne room revelation. Many of you approach relationships as petitioners. You come on your knees, begging, hoping, anxious, presenting yourself as someone who has no right to ask, no authority to expect, no standing to receive. You approach other humans as if they hold the keys to your happiness, your worth, your future. You make them into gods and then wonder why they fail you, as gods always fail when they are made of flesh. But I must correct this image completely. You are not a petitioner crawling into the throne room of another human being. You are a daughter of the King. You have blood-bought access to the Father himself. The veil was torn. The way was opened. You can approach the throne of grace with confidence. If you have access to the King of Kings, why do you beg for crumbs at the tables of men and women who have far less to offer? When you understand your position, your true position, you stop negotiating from weakness. You stop accepting treatment that is beneath your station. Not because you are prideful or arrogant, but because you are awake. You are aware of who you are. You know whose you are. And that knowledge changes everything. The woman who knows she has a seat at the Father's table does not fight for a seat at anyone else's. She is not desperate for invitations because she already belongs somewhere glorious. She is not anxious about whether she will be chosen because she was chosen before the foundation of the world. And this belonging, this settledness, this confidence radiates from her like light. People can feel it without her saying a word. It is in the way she carries herself. It is in the way she speaks. It is in the way she responds to rejection and disappointment. There is something different about her. And the difference is that she knows who she is. Stop auditioning. I need you to hear this clearly. Stop trying to convince anyone that you are worthy of their attention, their love, their time. You do not need to make a case for yourself. You do not need to present evidence of your worthiness. Either they recognize the treasure before them, or they do not. Either they have eyes to see, or they are blind. Either way, you remain a treasure. Their inability to perceive your value does not diminish it. A diamond is not less valuable because someone thinks it is glass. The diamond remains what it is, regardless of perception. Now let me give you something you can carry with you into tomorrow. Not burdens, but tools. Not rules, but rhythms. These are the practices that will anchor what I have spoken into the daily reality of your life. Because truth that is not practiced becomes theory, and theory does not change lives. Only applied truth transforms. The first practice is what I call the morning remembrance. Before you rise fully from your bed, before you reach for your phone, before you check your messages, before the world begins to speak its demands over you, speak first. Take a moment in those first waking breaths to establish whose you are before the world tries to tell you what you should be. Place your hand on your heart and declare, whether aloud or in the silence of your mind, I am chosen. I am seen. My worth is not up for negotiation today. No matter what happens, no matter what anyone says, no matter how anyone treats me, My value is established, and it will not be moved. This is not positive thinking in the shallow sense. This is positional truth. You are speaking what is already established in heaven before it is contested on earth. You are reminding yourself of reality before the lies have a chance to speak. Most of you begin your day in reaction. You wake up and immediately start responding to what others need, what others want, what others expect. By the time evening comes, you have absorbed so many opinions, so many voices, so many demands, that you no longer know which voice is yours. You have lost yourself in the noise of everyone else's expectations. The morning remembrance re-establishes your foundation before the storms come. It anchors you to truth before the lies start their assault. The second practice is the sacred pause before response. When someone makes a demand on your time, your energy, your heart, do not respond immediately. This is important. Do not react out of instinct or habit. Pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, am I about to respond from fullness or from fear? If the answer is fear, fear of their disappointment, fear of their rejection, fear of being seen as unkind, fear of what they might think, then pause longer. Any response born from fear will cost you more than it gives them. Decisions made from desperation rarely lead anywhere good. Choices made from anxiety tend to create more anxiety. This does not mean you become slow and unresponsive in all things. It means you become intentional. You are not obligated to respond to every text within seconds. You are not obligated to say yes to every request just because it was asked. The pause creates space for wisdom to enter where impulse used to rule. It creates a gap between stimulus and response where the spirit can speak, where truth can guide, where you can act from identity rather than react from fear. Even I withdrew. Even I, the Son of God, took time away from the crowds. I went to solitary places. I climbed mountains to be alone with the Father. If the Son of God needed space to hear clearly, how much more do you need space to hear me? The third practice is a weekly audit of your access. Once each week, sit quietly and review your relationships. Who has had access to you this week? How did you feel after your interactions with them? Did they leave you fuller or emptier? Write 2 lists. On one side, those who add to your life, those who leave you feeling encouraged, loved, seen, valued. On the other side, those who subtract, those who leave you feeling drained, anxious, unseen, used. This is not judgment of other people. This is discernment about your own patterns. You are not condemning those who subtract. You are simply becoming aware of the dynamics so you can adjust your boundaries accordingly. Awareness is the beginning of change. You cannot adjust what you have not acknowledged. For those who consistently subtract, ask yourself, is this a relationship I am called to maintain at this level? Have I simply been too afraid to create healthy distance? Is there a way to restructure this relationship that honors both of us? Some relationships need less time, not elimination. Some need restructured boundaries, not complete removal. Some need seasons of distance, not permanent exile. But you will not know the difference unless you pay attention. Awareness requires intentionality. The fourth practice is the nightly release. Before you sleep, before you close your eyes, release what you carried that day that was not yours to carry. Speak aloud or in the quiet of your heart, Father, I release the opinions of others. I do not need their approval to be whole. I release the need to be understood by everyone. It is enough that you understand me. I release the fear that I am too much or not enough. I am exactly what you made me to be. I lay down what I cannot control, and I receive your peace. Many of you carry yesterday's rejection into tomorrow's opportunity. You bring the pain of last year into this year's relationships. You let old wounds bleed into new connections. The nightly release prevents this accumulation. It empties your hands so they are free to receive what tomorrow brings. It clears your heart so there is room for new love, new hope, new possibility. Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. This is my promise. but you must actually let go of the weight. I cannot take what you refuse to release. If you insist on carrying what I am asking you to set down, you will remain burdened. The release is an act of trust. It is saying, I do not need to hold this. You will hold it for me, or you will remove it entirely. Either way, it is not mine to carry tonight. Now, I must leave you with what you will carry beyond this moment. We have walked together through stories and principles and practices, but now I need to bring this to a close in a way that stays with you, that echoes in your heart long after this teaching has ended. You came to me perhaps feeling unseen, undervalued, uncertain of whether you would ever be truly chosen. Perhaps you have spent years, even decades, proving your worth to people who never asked for proof because they never doubted it. Perhaps you have exhausted yourself in the performance of lovability, believing that if you just did more, gave more, were more, eventually someone would see you. You have learned today that the question was never whether you would be chosen. You already were. Before the foundation of the world, I chose you. Before your parents met, before you drew your first breath, before you made your first mistake, I saw you and I said yes to you. The question was never about being chosen. The question was whether you would believe it deeply enough to stop betraying that truth by acting like someone who needs to earn what was freely given. You have seen that chasing does not capture what is meant for you. What is yours will come to you. What is not yours will flee from you, no matter how fast you run after it. You have seen that dimming yourself does not protect you. It only ensures that those who need your light will not be able to find you in the darkness. You have seen that the woman who knows her worth does not negotiate it. She embodies it. She lives it. She walks in it without apology and without explanation. You are not an option. You are not a convenience. You are not a backup plan for someone's lonely nights. You are not a placeholder until something better comes along. You are a daughter of the Most High God. You are blood-bought with a price that cannot be calculated in earthly currency. You are spirit-filled with a power that raised the dead and calmed the storm. You are purpose-designed for works that were prepared in advance for you to do. You are eternally significant in a story that spans from before time to after time ends. Say this with me, and say it until it becomes the rhythm of your heart. I am not too much. I never was. Those who said I was too much were simply too small to hold all that I am. I am not too little. I am exactly what I was created to be. My worth is not determined by who stays or who leaves. People's decisions about me are not verdicts on my value. My value was set before I was born, and it will remain unchanged after I return to my Father. No one can add to it. No one can diminish it. It simply is, because He said so. I do not chase what is meant for me. What is mine will recognize me and come. I do not beg for what I deserve. What I deserve is already established in heaven. I do not shrink to make others comfortable. I shine so that those who belong in my life can find their way to me. I walk in the fullness of who I am, holding nothing back, apologizing for nothing that I was designed to be, and I trust, with everything in me, that those meant for me will recognize me, not the performed me, not the smaller me, not the dimmed me, but the real me, the whole me, the me that God created and Christ redeemed and the Spirit empowers. I am not an option. I am not a convenience. I am not a maybe or a someday or an if nothing better comes along. I am a treasure, and I will live accordingly from this moment forward for the rest of my days. If something in this teaching stirred your spirit, if you felt seen in the stories, if you felt challenged by the principles, if you felt awakened by the practices, I invite you to mark this moment. Do something to acknowledge what happened here. Leave a word in the comments, just one word, that captures what shifted in you today. Was it freedom, peace, hope, clarity? Let me know. Let others know. Let yourself know by declaring it. If you want to continue walking with me in teachings like this, subscribe, not out of obligation. Not because you feel you should, but because you sense there is more for you here. because something in your spirit resonates with what has been spoken, because you are hungry for truth that does not coddle but liberates. And if you know a sister who has forgotten her worth, a friend who has been settling for crumbs, a woman who needs to hear that she was never meant to beg for love, share this with her, not to fix her or preach at her, but to offer her a mirror of truth that might help her remember her own face. I did not speak these things today to make you feel good for an hour. I did not share these truths so you would have a temporary emotional experience that fades by tomorrow. I spoke them so you would live differently, not just feel differently, but live differently, for a lifetime, starting now, starting with your next choice, starting with how you respond to the next person who tries to make you feel like you are less than you are. Go in peace, not the peace the world gives, which depends on circumstances, but my peace, the peace that passes understanding, the peace that remains, even when storms rage, the peace that comes from knowing who you are and whose you are. And go in power. The power that raised me from the dead is alive in you. The same spirit that hovered over the waters at creation hovers over your life. You are not weak. Even when you feel weak, you are not powerless. Even when circumstances seem overwhelming, you have access to the throne room of the universe. You are a daughter of the King. Walk accordingly. Live accordingly. Love accordingly. And never forget that you are not an option. You never were. You never will be. You are a treasure. You are a luxury. And the world is waiting to see you shine. Go now and be who you were created to be. Remember, when doubt creeps in tomorrow or the day after, when old patterns try to pull you back to shrinking and settling and proving, come back to these truths. Let them wash over you again. Let them remind you of what you learned here. Because transformation is not a single moment. It is 1,000 small choices made in alignment with truth. It is deciding, again and again, that you will not negotiate your worth, that you will not dim your light, that you will not make yourself small for those who are threatened by your fullness. The world will test you. People will try to pull you back into old patterns. They are comfortable with the old you, the you that settled, the you that shrank, the you that made their lives easier at the expense of your own peace. When you change, it disrupts their expectations. Some will celebrate your transformation. Others will resist it. Let them. Your becoming is not about their comfort. It is about your alignment with who you were always meant to be. And in those moments when you are tempted to return to old ways, when the fear whispers that maybe you should just go back to how things were, when loneliness tries to convince you that settling is better than standing alone, remember this moment. Remember what you learned here. Remember who you are. Remember whose you are. You are loved, not for what you do, but for who you are. You are valued, not for what you produce, but for your very existence. You are chosen, not because you earned it, but because grace chose you before you could earn anything. This is the truth that makes you a luxury. This is the secret that changes everything. Now go and live it. I am with you always, even to the end of the age. You are never alone. You are never forgotten. You are mine.